It's time for the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. The podcast you look forward to for all of your news and reviews of the best comic books hitting stands. Whether it's DC, Batman, Wonder Woman, Marvel, Spider-Man, Image, Spawn, Saga, Boom, Once and Future, Power Rangers, or whatever book or publisher you follow. We cover them all here. This is the place for you. That's right. It's for everyone. This is the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. Let's get it.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I am, of course, your host, Theo. Got another good episode for you this week. This week I am sitting down with comic book writer Jordan Clark, and he and I are talking about his miniseries that recently came to an end at Ahoy Comics, Ancestral Recall. It was his first creator-owned project, and now it's getting ready to go to print as a trade paperback. It is out as a trade paperback in April on the 14th at bookstores everywhere and online. And so he and I spent some time talking about it, and talking about, the ideas of him putting the series together. And then we talk a little bit about, what's kind of been the hot topic, of course, on social media of late. And that's been what's been going on with the Dakota incident. And we got into that conversation because Jordan was one of the first that were a part of the first class of the Milestone initiative, which was the program that Milestone and DC did a few years ago, where they brought in creators of color, pretty much taught them things with regards to improving their style, improving their work as comic creators. And again, Jordan was a part of that first class. And so we talk a little bit about that and, how that affected him as a writer. And just, again, his thoughts on the conversations that has been going around on social media as of late. But we spend most of the time talking about, again, what's going on with Ancestral Recall and some of the stuff that he's going to be working on soon. So I'm pretty excited hearing about some of that stuff that he's talked about with regards to some of the things that he's going to be doing on his personal Patreon page. And we'll hear about that in the interview. But after that, I'll go ahead and close things out. Give some thoughts on some of my favorite books from this past week on New Comic Book Day, March the 11th. And then we'll talk about what's going to be on tap for our next episode. So once again, here it is, my interview with comic book writer Jordan Clark, talking about Ancestral Recall from Ahoy Comics, which is out on April the 14th as a trade paperback. And I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you all on the other side. Hey folks, it's Theo. I am sitting here with Jordan Clark, writer of the Oni Press series that's recently completed, the miniseries recently completed, Ancestral Recall. Jordan, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, man?
I am doing well. So we're talking, even though the series is over at Oni Press, we have a trade paperback that is coming out next month on the 14th. It's going to be available at shops everywhere, including the places that you may find trade paperbacks, such as Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. And so we want to talk a little bit about it. And I remember, so truth be told, Jordan and I have been trying to get together since San Diego Comic-Con of 2025 to talk about this series. And life happens, work happens, and Jordan reached out one last time, and I'm like, we're going to do this. And with the trade paperback coming out, let's do this right now. And so still had something that interfered, that interference being the Joint Commission. And for those of you who work in healthcare, you will know what the Joint Commission can do for an organization. But we were able to reschedule and get things scheduled, and we're here. And so I'm really excited to talk about this because Theo being the history buff that he is, my degree's in history. Whenever stuff comes out, even stories that are historical fiction, it always grabs my attention because there'll be times where I will pick and say, oh, let's see and see what I can do from it. So I always find myself drawn to historical stories, even historical fiction. And Ancestral Recall is a little bit like this. There's a little bit of history throughout it, and it focuses on one person, Melvin Waring, who ironically is a relative, a great nephew, I believe, of a famous painter. And so I guess my first question, we're going to talk spoilers because all 5 issues are out now from Unipress. So if you haven't read it yet, shame on you. So when you decided to put this story together, how did you decide on which historical characters you would involve? And first, before we do that, we have to talk as far as why we call it the story, because Melvin has a gift
Mm-hmm.
that really makes the story come to life. And he finds himself in the past, basically not necessarily embodied by historical figures, but in a way, yeah, because he picks up their abilities and it helps him
Yeah.
out in times of trouble. So when you were putting this story together, how did you decide which figures you wanted to focus on?
I think that was one of the more difficult aspects of just trying to, map the story and then figure out, okay, Melvin's going to need to do, X, Y, and Z at some point. He's going to need to, be a sword fighter. He's going to need to drive a car. He's going to need to do, whatever it is. And so I started going through and trying to just make a list of all these different Black historical figures who might fit some of what I needed. But then I was like, well, I don't want to just do, first Google search, kind of people who, it's the first person that you think of or the first just result that comes up. I wanted to do a little bit more digging just because I felt like one of the things generally, and then also in this moment, like Black history is something that you really do have to dig for because it's not always given to you. And even when at school in certain aspects, you learn surface level stuff, a couple of names, you don't really spend too much time on it. And so I really wanted to honor and give a spotlight to some of the people who you're not really going to just find in an average textbook, or when last month was Black History Month, so when everybody was doing their list of people that you need to know or like books you need to read, there's so much that is just buried intentionally, unintentionally. And so I wanted to try to find the kinds of people that you're not going to find in a history book, the kinds of people that you're not going to hear about, every Black History Month. And so, we've got people like Jean-Louis Michel, who was called the greatest sword fighter of the 19th century. Like everybody attested that he was just one of the best sword fighters, not just coming out of Haiti, but just in the world, and there's all kinds of stories about what he did. Kitty Knox, who was a trailblazing cyclist, like these kinds of people that you just don't hear about every day. And so that's one of my big goals, was trying to go through and find these people. There's a whole bunch of people I couldn't put in the book just because I was like, there's really no room to fit all of these names in here. But I'm really happy with the people that, I did put in, because I do feel like one of the biggest responses I've heard time and time again was like, I didn't know that was a real person. I didn't know that story. I didn't know that history. And so it feels like, mission was accomplished in terms of getting those names out and making sure that people at least had something to go on if they wanted to look into it further.
Yeah, one of the things I really appreciated when looking at the historical figures you selected, you didn't limit it to historical Black men. You included women as well, such as Cheryl Lynn Glass, who was a female race car driver. So it wasn't just, okay, Melvin has to pull these abilities from historical Black men. No, he just went wherever his mind went. It was to that particular person who was at that stage the best there is, and that's who it was, whether it was a male or female. And I really appreciated that. That was really exciting. How he get there, in that path, and then he's back, and now they're saying, okay, do this, do that, and they're guiding him to accomplish what he needs to do. Because without those abilities, Melvin and Myron will be in a whole lot of trouble with what they were
Absolutely.
doing. So while we have this story with Melvin, and he's going into the past to get these abilities, your story also has a lot of time travel. There's a lot of jumping into the future as a part of the story, because we see that Melvin's wife has been kidnapped, and not only has she been kidnapped, she's been kidnapped and then brought to the future, by this big conglomerate. So when writing story, did you find that difficult? Not only looking at the historical figures you were trying to do, but also the back and forth in time. How did you keep yourself in check to know, okay, let me make sure I say this exactly how I needed to say, because I know when I have to go back to the present, I have to make sure stuff matches up. For example, Moran is in the future. She's 10 years older than what she was in the present, dealing with Melvin. So there's a lot of stuff that, there were a few times I had to go back and reread to make sure I didn't miss something that I may have missed, just because I'm like, okay, like for example, when we go into the future and we see June and the other abductees there, and then we see Moran and she definitely looks old, and I'm like, wait, what did I miss? And so I'm going back to make sure I didn't miss anything. So how did you keep yourself in check to make sure that you didn't mess up the time continuum, so that anything didn't implode on one another?
I mean, shout out to my editor, for helping me kind of keep everything together, and making sure that there wasn't any discrepancies where it's like, oops, did I mean the past? Did I mean the future? But also I think that's part of, really what I wanted to get into is like a very Afrofuturist kind of story where we're seeing all of these different possibilities, past, present, and future. And that's really one of the main messages of the story, is that everything is connected together, right? Past informs present, informs future. So like none of these things can be without the other. And so I really wanted to do my best to kind of highlight each specific era, whether Melvin was traveling to the past, to have these conversations, whether he was traveling to the future, like he ultimately does. June's in the future, Marin's in the future. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. And so, hopefully it all does make sense ultimately when people are reading it, because I'm a big science fiction fan and a big Doctor Who fan, and like, that traveling around can get a little complicated sometimes, but we tried our best to kind of make sure that everything was laid out in a way that you could follow it.
Oh man, I wish I would have known you were a Doctor Who fan. I would have had that added to Rapid Fire, because I am a big, huge Who fan as well, because I surely would have had you picking between 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th Doctor. So, so yeah. So I don't want to discuss the story any further without talking about the art from Edigan Ilyan. And how did the two of you connect for this story? Was he kind of put on your radar, or was this someone that you may have worked with in the past and was like, yeah, this is the guy I want on this story?
So me and Adigan were fortunate enough to both be a part of the Milestone initiative a couple of years back. So a lot of great people came out of that. You got Julio Anta, you got Morgan Hampton, you got Ashley Allen, a lot of people who are working in comics right now. And Adigan's also done a bunch of stuff for DC on Poison Ivy, and he did some of the Milestone books too. And so one of the things just coming out of that, I was really excited to just, try to jump into stuff and get some projects going. But I was also like, man, if I could work with Adigan, like that would be amazing. And so, everything kind of came together. Ahoy Comics, who's publishing it, is based in Syracuse. He was going to Syracuse University at the time. So he was like, oh, like, I think one of the people here works for Ahoy. Like they're one of the main people there. So when I pitched it to him, he was like, oh, I'm just going to go ask them. Like, let's see if we can figure this out and put it together. And so I think Adigan, to me, is one of the best, working in comics right now. And I think he's got a really big future ahead of him in terms of all of the things that he can do. In this book, I threw a lot of stuff at him. I threw, like mechanical dogs at him. I threw historical figures at him. I threw love scenes at him. I threw action scenes at him. And everything that he did was exactly either how I imagined it or even better. And so, somebody like that who has that versatility, who can get across, the emotion of a scene, but can also get across, like just the feeling and the action of a scene. He was doing martial arts sequences, in one book, and then doing like a first date in the next book. And like, he really pulls it all together in a way that makes it feel like it's all just one big story. And so, like, I'm extremely grateful that we did get the chance to work together. And I'm very hopeful that, this is just the first of many collaborations that we get to do.
Yeah, you also drew animatronic pandas that apparently can grow in size. So I thought that was pretty neat. Again, growing into the future, just as pandas would do. But he got as big as a kind of almost like a black bear, or how big it got compared to being a panda. And let me correct myself. It was a Hoy comic. I've been saying unimpressed, but no, it's a Hoy
It's all
comic.
good.
Yeah, and I say that because ironically, they both use the same PR firm. So I use that, and that's who I communicate a lot to, including setting up this interview. But yes, and I should know Ahoy from meeting with Mark Russell so much. But so we now know that the trade paperback is coming out. How do you feel knowing that your work is continuing? The 5 issues are out, the series is over, but there's now this popularity to where let's get this out in trade so that we can continue this story out there.
Yeah, this is my first creator-owned project, so like to have it collected in a book is very meaningful to me, just because, one, like you said, now it kind of gets to live on in a different way, and reach a larger audience. But two, I think comics are like a lot of media these days. It's just very difficult, right, for everybody to be up on everything at the same time, watching everything, reading everything, listening to everything. And so, it's always nice when somebody puts you onto something and they're like, yo, did you read? Did you watch? Have you seen? And I think this is a great opportunity for people who are like, oh man, like you said, I missed the issues. Like, how can I read it? It's like, now you've got, the trade paperback. You can get it, like you said, at your comic book shop. You can get it at bookstores. You can get it off the internet. And hopefully, our biggest hope is for it to be in libraries and schools as well, because I feel like, it does have those elements that can help, people who maybe are interested in history in some ways, but it's just, I don't want to sit and read a textbook, or, I don't want to sit and watch this documentary, but maybe I can read this book. And in the back of, the trade, we're going to have additional things, giving you more information about each of the historical figures. So, hopefully it can be something that is entertaining and educational, and, just the wider reach of having it in that collected trade. Because I'm very excited just to hold it, for the first time, and be able to see everything in one place collected together.
Yeah, I think that is that medium being trade paperbacks and its availability in libraries more than anywhere else is really somewhat of a godsend that wasn't there when I was growing up, and going to public libraries or even school libraries. The comic books and trade paperbacks weren't always available. The most that I remember seeing going to my library maybe was ElfQuest, and that was it. And so, nowadays I know a lot of readers who may not have the ability to buy comics on a regular basis will go to their local library and pick up books. And a lot of times it's in the trade format. They don't get as many floppies as one might think, but there are trade paperbacks now all over libraries that you can go and pick up and read what we're reading, that I'm reading on a monthly basis. So let me ask this question. You being a I'll use the term graduate of the Milestone initiative, which again, Milestone Media put together several years ago, brought a lot of diverse young creators into who may not have had their foot in the place at a big two or Image or things of that nature, and brought them together and allowed them to work and learn from some of the creators and some of the founders of Milestone. Over the past week or so, there's been a lot of healthy conversation going on with DC and Milestone and the place of, I'll use the term diverse comics, because while the focus of the chatter was about Black comics, Milestone was never really about just Black comics. It was a very diverse range of characters that existed, and rightfully so. But as also someone who's not only wrote for mainstream, but now also write as an independent creator as well, Ancestral Recall being your first. Why do you think some believe that there's not a place where you can support both?
I feel like this is it's the never ending debate, right? No matter what it is, even like within diverse circles, but even just generally, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who just like, oh man, all I read is, Marvel, DC, like that's it. I don't want to read any of those Image books, those Boom books, those other books. And so, when it comes to diverse books, like it shrinks down even more, right? Just because, historically there's been less opportunity for us to get in the door and work in those spaces. And so I think generally, what typically happens is, these conversations kind of just devolve into people choosing sides, right? Everything turns into sports and everybody's got to pick a team. And then, like there's really no actual conversation happening. I think it's very evident that there's enough room for everything. And I think really even the success of the Dakota incident shows that like there's an appetite for it, right? Like people want to read these stories. They want to see these characters. And I think really what it comes down to is just like, how can we all collectively get on, is everybody going to get on the same exact page? Difficult to say, but like, how can we keep this momentum going and spread it around, right? Because like not everybody's going to be able to work at Marvel and DC, right? Like there's only so many books to go around. There's only so many opportunities that people are going to get. And so there's other people doing work, I mean? You look at people like Rodney Barnes, who's doing all kinds of, incredible work. You look at David Walker, Chuck Brown, everybody at the Bitterroot team. You look at people like, Joe Illidge, who's out there, friends of mine like Vida Ayala. You look at Ray Anthony Height. You look at Stephanie Williams. You look at all these people who are doing these incredible books, all over the place, not just at Marvel and DC, but at Image, at Boom, with their own independent things that they're doing, right? And so I think really what it has to be is like, how can we all collectively work towards something that just gives people that choice and that opportunity, right? Like I'm old enough to remember a time back in the day where the Black movie that you got was the Tyler Perry movie, right? And like that was it. That was the one Black movie every year. You could either go see the Tyler Perry movie or that's it. And so everybody was mad at Tyler Perry because they were like, well, I don't want to go watch Tyler Perry movies. I hate Tyler Perry. I'm not interested in that. And it's like, well, that's certainly fine. But like, if there was more choice, if there was more variety, more things out there, and then, you got Black Panther, and then you got Get Out, and then you got Sorry to Bother You, and then you got, all of these other stories. And then it was like, oh, there's room, right? Like everybody can be out here doing all of these things. And then it was less a conversation about what's wrong with Tyler Perry and more just like, oh, yeah, now we have the opportunity to see all these different voices and all these different things. And like you were saying as well, it's not just Black comics, it's diverse comics, right? There's all kinds of stories that need to be told, that can be told. My friend Henry Barajas, like Death to Pacheco, like that's his big book that's out right now. That's a great book. Like people should be supporting that. There's all of these books that have all of these different stories. And one of my favorite things just about reading in general is being able to learn about and see the world through somebody else's eyes, right? Because I'll never get to be you, but you can tell me a story from your perspective, and I can see just a little bit of what it is of how you see the world, right? And so the more of those stories that are out there, the better. And so, it's an internet world. Everybody wants to have an opinion. Everybody's going to have a hot take or something to say. Controversy definitely gets clicks and people talking, but ultimately it's about action, right? And it feels like people took action buying the Dakota incident, right? Like that sold a lot of copies. So that I think we should be talking more about the action that people are taking or willing to take in terms of how we can support these books instead of just like talking ourselves in circles and nobody's really doing anything.
Yeah. I've come to a point where I will make a few statements and then I will leave it alone, because at that point you pretty much know you're not going to change anyone's mind or anyone's opinion on the situation. So you kind of have to just let it be, because you're not making any change. I've said what I'm gonna say. You said what you're gonna say, and yeah, I mean, I am the type that's always open. I read Marvel and DC, but I also support Joe Ilyich doing the Winterfields in The Wild and the New Black, or I also brought Stephanie Williams' Temporal and Roots of Madness. So I understand that there's a place for both and for everything. And yeah, you can't change everyone's mind, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I had this question and it slipped my mind because it popped up while you were talking. Let me yeah, here it is. So Ancestral Recall is done. The itch that is your first creator-owned project is done and over with. It's been printed. It's now going to reprint as a trade paperback. So now that itch is done, do you have an idea of what your next creator-owned project will be? And if so, are you free to talk about it?
So I got a few things that I'm working on, and I got a few people that I'm talking to. So I can't spill the beans on everything. But what I will say is that my mindset is always I'm making comics no matter what, right? So like if I got a publisher's ear or editor's ear and I can get something in the door, absolutely I'm going to do that. But also if I just got to do it on my own, I'm also going to do that. So I could talk about some of the things that I'm planning to do later this year as I kind of look around to see if I could get a couple other projects in some places. And two of the things I've been planning for a long time that like I keep trying to kick myself into doing, and now I'm just gonna do it because I feel like it's time to finally just, like I said, take action and start working on stuff. And coming off of Ancestral Recall, like I feel like I have the tools now to kind of tell these stories and like work on these projects. So the first one is one I'm going to be doing on my Patreon, because I had the Patreon and I never did anything with it. And I was like, well, you gotta make that worth your time. And so I've had an idea called the Black Culture Handbook for a long time, which is basically like, there's a lot of things that I feel like as Black people, we just do. And I've always been like, why do we do that? Why do we play spades? Like, where did line dancing come from? Like, why do we eat these particular foods? Like, who started wearing grills? Who got the first shape up? Like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm just like, it's just stuff that we do all the time that just feels like, not even that we take for granted, but I just am very curious about like the origins, a lot of this stuff. And so my idea is to do, basically like break it down into different things, like origins of double Dutch, origins of, like spades, origins of, just like different fashion and things like that, the origin adapt. And then there'll be, like a short nonfiction essay to introduce it. And then me or some of my friends will do like little mini comics that are stories about, our first encounter with this thing and like how it kind of came to be a part of our lives. And so that's something I'm going to start doing March through the rest of the year, and we'll see, how successful it is. But even just for myself as a challenge to kind of keep it consistent throughout the year. And then the second thing I'm going to try to do is at some point this year, I'm going to try to do a Kickstarter. So hold me to this as well, because I've had an idea for a long time called A Black Person's Guide to Time Travel, which is basically like, in the future, time travel is real. Black people can time travel, but the joke has always been like, you can't go back past whatever time. And so I feel like we should have the opportunity to do that and see that, because like there's so much that we've, should be able to experience, so many things that happen that we should be able to celebrate. I think a lot of times people think about Black history as like this sad thing that's like full of trauma and pain, and like it's certainly in there, but also there's a lot of good stuff too. And so I kind of want to highlight that. So the idea is, it's like the Green Book of time travel, right? Like this time travel company is like, all right, so you can go back to like 1865 on this day between like 2:00 and 6:00. Like that's the good time, and then we'll get you back out, and you can experience, this blues show, or you can go see, this Prince concert, or you can go see, this important speech, or just like visit, your great grandmother or whatever it is. And so, that's something that I want to do. I'm trying to get a bunch of people together to work on it with me. So that those are the two things that I'm planning to do, and then hopefully I'll have additional projects from other places coming out.
Well, I definitely have to get that Patreon link from you, because while Theo is a history buff and has a degree in history, Theo has never known the history of spades, and so I definitely got to check that out. And I'm telling you now, if you throw Tunk in there, we gonna if you throw Tunk or Pity Pat in there, we gonna have some real fun. I am gonna be all over that. So, as we do in every show, we're gonna close things out as we always do with rapid fire. And as always, rapid fire is 2 choices, no right or wrong answers, unless I have just a strong opinion about something.
Okay.
But usually it's not. Usually it's all good. But let me know when you're ready, and we can go and hit rapid fire.
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
Here we go. First up, Batman or Moon Knight?
I'm going to go Moon Knight. I feel like Moon Knight, as much as I love Batman, Moon Knight just like, there's a lot more layers literally to him, and just the possibilities to get into. I'm more Moon Knight. Just Moon Knight wins by like a little bit.
Yeah, when you have those extra personalities, it can add extra layers to who you are. So I'll go with that too. I can go with that too. Voltron or Power Rangers?
This is also tough. This is also big parts of my childhood. I'm gonna go Power Rangers. I'm a OG Power Ranger fan. Up until, I want to say it was like the dinosaur, like the rebranding of the dinosaur. Like after the last movie that came out in theaters, that's kind of where I aged out of Power Rangers. But like, always has a place in my heart. So
I'm gonna upset a lot of people when I say this, but so mine is Voltron, especially the Lions, but I kind of, when they introduced Tommy to the Power Rangers, that was kind of it for me. And I really like, Jason David Frank, God bless his soul, rest in peace. But I don't know, when they introduced Tommy on Power Rangers, I just got turned off, and there was nothing that they could do to bring me back. And I don't know, there was just something about Tommy. But again, I love Jason David Frank. I've talked to him many times at conventions and things of that nature. And he knew. I was like, I was not always a fan of Tommy. Please don't kill me. But I don't know what it was about that. All right, next up. She-Hulk or Wonder Woman?
I also got to go She-Hulk. I'm a big She-Hulk fan. Dan Slott, the John Byrne She-Hulk run, Charles Soule She-Hulk run, like something about not just being the OG fourth wall breaker, but also I think it's such a fun idea and concept, just her being like the lawyer for both superheroes and supervillains and like all of the insanity that comes from that. I love Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's great. No shots at Wonder Woman, but if I had to choose, it's She-Hulk all day.
All right. Gundam or Robotech?
I gotta go Gundam. I don't know enough about Robotech. So Gundam again, Toonami days,
Yeah.
just staying up and watching that. Like Gundam again, something that I've seen enough of it that I know what I like. I'm not a completionist or a hardcore like some other people I know, but like if you throw it on, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, Robotech was more late 80s, early 90s, and so Theo's old enough to remember that because, if I had hair on my head, it would be gray. And this is going to be last one. Batman the Animated Series or Justice League Unlimited?
It's tough, and I know you teased this to me before we came on, and I had a little bit of time to think about it. So, in honor of Dwayne McDuffie, I'm going to go Justice League Unlimited. Mostly because I think I love Batman the Animated Series. Again, this is one of those. It's razor thin. I just remember like just the sagas of Justice League Unlimited and how like dense it got. Specifically, having watched Batman the Animated Series, it kind of feels like not even necessarily the evolution of it, but like you could tell all of the things that everybody who had worked on all these other animated shows learned from that and what they applied to this, because like it still holds up today. It's still a masterpiece of both animation and storytelling. So, like I said, no shots at Batman the Animated Series. One of my favorites of all time, but I'm gonna give it to Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah. Theo being the Batman fan will almost always pick the animated series, but when I found out back then that Dwayne McDuffie was heavily involved in putting together the stories of Justice League Unlimited, being someone who was influenced as a reader by all the Milestone books. I was a high school senior when they first came out, so it immediately won me over. So yeah, that one more than anything is definitely not one that you can get wrong. And in my score now, Justice League Unlimited is back in the lead by 2 over Justice League Unlimited. They started out with a bang, then the animated series came back and tied it up, but now Justice League Unlimited is back in the lead with number 2. Jordan Clark, how can fans keep up with you if they want to know what's going on in your world and the projects that you're working on?
You can find me on all the social medias at JRSosa18, JRSOSA18. Like we said, Ancestral Recall is coming out April 14th. You can find it wherever you get your comics. Definitely go out and get that. And then, I'm going to try, like I said, to be responsible to myself and keep up with all the other things that I said I was going to do with the Patreon and the Kickstarter. But on my socials, you'll be able to find links to all of that stuff.
Well, I will more than likely see you at San Diego this year again. And if so, I will definitely be keeping check to see where you are with both of those projects, especially the Patreon, because, I want to know how my mom first learned spades was a thing and how she taught me if I don't pick the right partner, I'm doomed from the start. I will have those links in the show notes. But again, and Ancestral Recall is on shelves April 14th. I will have some links in the show notes for that as well. You can pre-order definitely on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Jordan Clark, thank you again so much for joining me here on the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. It's been a joy.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it, man.
So again, I want to thank Jordan Clark for sitting with me on this episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I truly enjoyed the conversation as we talked not only about Ancestral Recall, but also his time over at the Milestone Initiative and what that meant to him as a comic book creator. Before closing out this week, as I mentioned in the intro, real quick, I'm not going to do anything real deep, but I do want to go over the books that, were my favorite from this past week. There wasn't that much that I did read, but from what I read, here is my top 5. First up, in the number 5 spot over at Dynamite Entertainment, Sonya Reborn is the final issue from Christopher Priest and Alessandro Miracolo. Wasn't expecting the ending that we got to end that story, but yeah, it was really good. I remember when I first spoke with Christopher Priest last year about what was going on, and he really brought up the idea of, is it really Sonya who has been, trading places, or is it Rebecca? And it was a really good story. I truly enjoyed it, and it's good to know that he is going to be doing more stuff. He's going to be doing another Vampirella volume over at Dynamite, so he just can't get enough of our favorite vampire. But that's my number 5 book. The number 4 book over at IDW, it is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 16 from Jin Yang, with art from Pharaoh Pinich. I have been really enjoying. I wasn't sure what to expect once Jin Yang took over from Jason Aaron, but I have been pleasantly surprised that he is kind of sticking with things as they were with the Turtles and moving the story along, especially with the return of, at least the potential return of Splinter. So again, really enjoyed it. Absolutely been loving this rendition or this volume of the Turtles, despite the fact that I haven't always followed it since it's been at IDW. In the number 3 spot, Gotchaman number 16 over at Mad Cave Studios from Sam Humphries with art from Pascal Quilano. So I wasn't sure how I would feel about Sam Humphries' run on Gotchaman after he took over from Cullen Bunn. And one of the things that really kind of turned me off, and it's not really his fault, or it's just the way the story ended, or at least the cross transition ended, was that there were a lot of plot holes that were left unquestioned when Cullen Bunn left Gotchaman. After that big cliffhanger when Galactor sprang the trap not only on the Science Ninja team as they were away from the ISO headquarters, but also on the ISO headquarters. And, we've slowly been seeing some of those things answered by Sam Humphries. I hope we continue to get more. We see a new character that was introduced in this issue. I wasn't actually sure if this was, an old character from the old Gotchaman series that I somehow forgot in my old age. But after talking to some other folks who are familiar with the character and the universe, it is a new character. So I'm okay with that, because again, it is within the world of Gotchaman, but it kind of allows the story to flesh out and grow with this new character. So we shall see how things work out as we learn more about this mysterious agent that apparently Dr. Nambu has knowledge of. So we shall see. But that is my number 3 book. Number 2, in the number 2 spot, Absolute Green Lantern number 12 from Al Ewing with art from Prasad Rao as well as Sid Konchin. So This one was really, really good from the standpoint of course, we see that they are fighting the Onyx monster, Todd Rice, the Absolute Universe's Onyx. But in the end, what was really fun was seeing that the Green Lantern had returned, and we see that it had actually returned with Tomar-Ray, and Tomar-Ray, pretty much says, yeah, he's going to use the lantern, which is technically a weapon, to go after and to kill Mogo. So we shall see what comes next with that. I've been really enjoying Absolute Green Lantern from the start. But my number one book for this past week, Transformers number 30 from Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora over at Skybound Image. And if there is anything that I was not expecting, is the fact that Optimus, make sure I say it right, Optimus Prime is no longer Optimus Prime. He is just Optimus, as he has given the spark of leadership over to Elita, who is now Elita Prime. So I was not expecting that to end the story, although I should have, considering the cover. But that was my favorite book for this week. Again, wasn't something I was expecting at all, and it just took me by surprise, but I really enjoyed it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as the story continues, now that Optimus is who he is now. He's no longer a Prime, and he's staying on Earth, as Elita has taken a good chunk of the Autobots back to Cybertron to fight back in the war, and it has left Prime there with more or less a skeleton crew of Autobots to help fend off the danger from the Decepticons on Earth. So we shall see how things happen with that next issue, with issue number 31. But that was my favorite book for this week, which was, again, Transformers number 30 from Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora. But that is going to do it for this episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. As always, I thank you all for your support. Again, I want to thank Jordan Clark for sitting with me. I will have links to Ancestral Recall in the show notes if you have an interest in purchasing the trade paperback. Again, it's already up and available for pre-order, and I actually hope that you do go out there and pre-order it. It was a really good story, and if you click the link and make a purchase through either of those links, it helps out the site, it helps out this channel, and it just helps everything that we do here at the Comic Bin, as well as our sister site over at the Batman Universe, grow and do more. So if you do, I thank you for taking the time and supporting the show, and supporting Jordan Clark for the story that he wrote with Ancestral Recall. But next time, I will be sitting with comic book writer and executive Mark London as we talk about his newest addition to his Underworld universe that he's creating over there at Mad Cave Studios with Honor and Curse Eternal. So that is coming out later this month. So I had a good conversation with him. We'll be talking about that, and just some of the things that's been going on over there at Mad Cave, including with some of the stuff with Speed Racer and Gotcha Man, and some of the other titles that are going on over there that I've just been enjoying, especially those nostalgic stories that have been coming back with their partnership with Tatsunoko Productions. But again, that's going to do it for this episode. I want to thank you all for listening in, and as always, for your support. If this is your first time, please subscribe. Click that subscribe button so that you can show your support for the show, help us grow, as well as you get notifications of when our next episode will drop. But again, thank you all for your support, and I will see you all next time, and keep reading those comics. that is going to do it for this episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support of the program. The Comic Bin Podcast, as well as the Comic Book Spot, are a part of the Comic Book Source family of sites and media. You can follow the podcast on Twitter X at comic_bin, or my personal account at BatmanFan_4life. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. We're all over social media. You can also follow our sister site over at thebatmanuniverse.net for all of your news and reviews in the world of Batman. Tune in next time as we give you more in the world of comic books. Again, we truly appreciate your support. But until we meet again next time, keep reading those comics.